Welcome to a journey beyond time. Tonight, we step into the world of the Maya, a civilization that looked at the stars and measured eternity. Some believed their calendar predicted the end of the world in 2012, but was it truly a doomsday prophecy or something far more mysterious? Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let the rhythm of this story guide you into rest. Together, we will walk through ancient temples, listen to forgotten voices, and uncover the secrets hidden in stone and sky. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. It helps keep these journeys alive. Now, settle in and let us begin. The birth of the Maya calendar. In the stillness of the jungle night beneath a canopy of stars brighter than most of us have ever seen, the ancient Maya looked upward and saw not just points of light but the threads of destiny itself. To them, the sky was not a silent dome, it was a living map, a storyteller, a record keeper that whispered the secrets of eternity. Every star had a place, every shadow carried meaning, and every shift of the heavens was a sign that time itself was breathing in cycles. Imagine yourself walking slowly through the dense rainforests of Central America. The air is heavy with the scent of earth after rainfall, the call of unseen birds echoing through the trees. Suddenly the forest parts, and you stand before a towering pyramid of stone, its steps rising high into the sky, built with astonishing precision centuries before your birth. These were not only temples, they were calendars carved in stone, each alignment carefully calculated to mirror the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets. For the Maya, time was not something abstract. It was something you could climb, touch, and walk upon. The Maya people, who flourished from around 2000 BCE to the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century, were among the most advanced astronomers of the ancient world. They lived in what is now Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Belize, and El Salvador, but their vision of time stretched far beyond the limits of geography. Their priests, the daykeepers, observed the heavens night after night, year after year, until they understood the rhythms hidden in the skies. From their patient observations emerged one of the most extraordinary creations of human thought, the Maya calendar. This was no ordinary calendar. It was not simply a way to mark the passing of days as we do with 12 months and leap years. The Maya calendar was a system of cycles within cycles, weaving short counts and long counts into a cosmic tapestry. At its heart were two interlocking wheels of time: the Tzolk'in, a 260-day sacred calendar, and the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar. These two wheels turned together like gears in a cosmic machine, repeating every 52 years in what was called the calendar round. To live through a full calendar round was to see the return of sacred patterns, to feel that time was not a straight road but a spiral that forever circled back on itself. As you listen, imagine the slow, patient ticking of these ancient cycles. Every day carried a name, a number, and a meaning. A child born on a certain day was believed to inherit the destiny of that day, shaped by the energies that it carried. Farmers planted their corn by the rhythm of these calendars, priests chose sacred festivals, rulers timed their wars and coronations, and the people measured their lives by the intricate weave of cosmic order. But there was yet another measure of time, one that extended far beyond the reach of ordinary lives, the long count calendar. Where the 260-day and 365-day cycles guided daily existence, the long count was designed to map history itself. It began on a mythical creation date, which corresponds to August 11th, 3114 BCE in our Gregorian calendar. From that beginning, time was measured in units called baktans, each lasting nearly 400 years. The long count was not concerned with harvests or ceremonies alone. It was the story of the world itself, stretching across thousands of years. To the Maya, the universe was born, lived, and eventually renewed in great cycles. Just as the day was reborn with the rising sun, and the year renewed with the return of the seasons, so too was the cosmos destined to end and begin again. The long count was their way of tracing these immense cycles, to know not only where they stood in history, but also where history itself would fold into renewal. Picture a Maya scribe seated cross-legged by the light of a flickering torch, carving numbers and glyphs into a smooth stone stela. His hands move with calm precision, each stroke marking the passage of days in the sacred count. Around him, the jungle hums with life, and above him the stars trace their internal paths. To him, this act of recording time is not simple bookkeeping. It is an act of alignment with the cosmos, a recognition that human life is bound within the breath of the universe. The cities of the Maya reflected this reverence for time. Temples at Chichen Itza, Tikal, Palenque, and Copan were not merely centers of worship. They were cosmic observatories. At Chichen Itza, the great pyramid known as El Castillo was built so that on the equinox the setting sun cast a shadow that looked like a serpent slithering down the steps, a vision of the god Kukulkan descending from the heavens. At Oaxaca, aligned stone structures marked the solstices and equinoxes with astonishing accuracy. Time was written in stone, sunlight, and shadow. For the Maya, the divine and the scientific were never separate. To watch the sky was to listen to the gods. To measure the planets was to understand destiny. Their priests were not only spiritual guides, but mathematicians and astronomers of remarkable skill. They developed a sophisticated system of mathematics, using only dots and bars, and they understood the concept of zero centuries before Europe did. These tools allowed them to predict eclipses, chart Venus's cycle, and construct calendars of extraordinary precision. And yet, the Maya never saw time as cold or mechanical. Time was alive. It was sacred. Every cycle carried energy, every moment carried weight, and every turn of the calendar wheel was another heartbeat in the life of the cosmos. When they carved the end of a cycle into stone, they did not mean that existence itself would vanish. They meant that a great renewal was coming, a chance for the world to be reborn, as it always had been. This understanding, however, would one day be misunderstood. Many centuries later, when modern eyes turned to the Maya calendar, they saw only numbers and end dates, not the living cycles behind them. The end of a Baktun, specifically the 13th Baktun, was mistaken for the end of everything, a prophecy of doom. But to the Maya, it was not doom at all. It was continuity. It was transformation. As you drift deeper into this story, imagine how it must have felt to live in a world where time itself was sacred, and visible in every sunrise, every temple, every stone carving. Imagine walking through a bustling Maya marketplace, where traders exchanged cacao beans, jade, and obsidian, while priests quietly noted the day in the sacred count, and rulers planned ceremonies timed to the heavens. The entire society breathed with the rhythm of the calendar, as though humanity itself was one great organism bound to the pulse of the stars. Even in daily life, this presence of time was never far away. A farmer rising with the dawn would glance at the horizon, where the sun returned again and again in its endless promise. A mother would remember the sacred day on which her child was born, knowing that it shaped their path through life. A priest would stand at the top of a pyramid, watching Venus rise as the morning star, knowing that its cycle foretold moments of war and peace. In this way, the Maya calendar was not just a system of counting days, it was the heartbeat of a civilization. It bound the people to the heavens, to the earth, and to each other. And as the centuries passed, it carried them through triumph and hardship, through the building of great cities, and the mysteries of their eventual decline. Tonight, as you rest and listen, remember that we are stepping into a vision of time that is very different from our own. We often see time as a straight line, forever marching forward. But to the Maya, time was a circle, a cycle, a great wheel turning endlessly. It is within this cycle that the question of prophecy arises. Did the Maya foresee the end of the world, or did they simply see the world's eternal renewal? That question, whispered across centuries, still lingers in the shadows of their temples and the silence of their abandoned cities. For now, let the images linger in your mind. The stars above the jungle, the stone pyramids rising from the earth, the sacred calendar wheels turning together in their silent dance. Time continues to move, as it always has, carrying us into deeper mysteries and as the story unfolds, we will walk further into the heart of Maya prophecy, where calendars meet myths, and where the question of the end becomes a question of eternal beginning, the gods of time and the cycles of creation. In the heart of Maya belief, time was not an empty vessel that simply passed. Time was alive. It was divine. Every cycle had a face. Every turning of the calendar wheel had a spirit guiding it. To step into Maya cosmology is to enter a universe where the boundaries between gods and days blur, where creation itself unfolds again and again in eternal rhythms. Close your eyes and imagine the world as the Maya envisioned it. The Earth is not just a ball floating in space, it is a great, sacred plain, supported by 4 immense trees, each planted at a corner of the universe. These cosmic trees stretch from the roots of the underworld to the highest skies, their branches heavy with stars. At the very center grows the Cebra tree, the world tree, its trunk a living axis that connects the realms of heaven, earth, and Xibalba, the underworld. From this tree, all life flows. The Maya believed that the universe had not been created once, but many times. In their stories, each world that existed before ours was destroyed and remade, each one a cycle in the great heartbeat of the cosmos. The Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiché Maya, tells of these creations. First the gods shaped a world of mud, but it crumbled away. Then they made men of wood, but these beings were hollow, without souls, and so they were swept away in floods and fire. Finally, the gods fashioned humanity from maize, the sacred corn that sustained Maya life. Yellow corn and white corn were ground together to form flesh, water to form blood, and the breath of the gods to form spirit. And so the people of maize, the Maya, came into being. Maize was not only food, it was identity. It was life itself. To eat maize was to consume the substance of humanity. To plant it was to honor the gods who had shaped men and women from its kernels, and to live by the cycles of its growth was to live in harmony with the cycles of creation. Every harvest was a reminder that death leads to life, that endings are only beginnings in disguise. The gods themselves were bound to these cycles. Among them was Itzamna, the great creator, Lord of wisdom who gave writing and knowledge to humanity. There was Chak, the rain god, whose lightning axe split the sky and brought the waters needed for maize to grow. And there was Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, who moved between the heavens and the earth, bringing both wisdom and transformation. Each god was more than a figure in myth. They were forces moving through time, shaping destiny as the calendar wheels turned. But perhaps most important of all were the gods of death and renewal. In the deep, shadowed realms of Xibalba, the lords of the underworld ruled, testing humanity with trials and illusions. Yet even here, death was not final. It was part of the great cycle, a doorway into renewal. The hero twins of the Popol Vuh, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, descended into Xibalba, faced its challenges, and through sacrifice and rebirth brought light to the world. Their journey echoed the path of the sun itself, sinking each night into darkness, only to rise again in radiant victory. To the Maya, then, prophecy was never a simple statement of what would happen. It was an awareness of these cycles, of the way creation and destruction wove endlessly together. The sacred calendar, the Tolkien, was infused with divine presence. Each day had its own patron god, its own energy, its own meaning. To be born on a certain day was to be tied to that god, to carry its essence in your soul. A child born under the sign of Ik, the wind, might grow to be a restless traveler or a messenger. One born under Kan, the seed, might be destined for abundance, fertility, or leadership. In this way, time was not neutral. It was alive with possibility, woven into every human destiny. Now imagine yourself in a Maya city centuries ago, the night sky glittering with constellations. Priests, known as the day keepers, stand upon the temple steps, dressed in robes of woven cotton, their faces painted with sacred patterns. They chant the names of days, numbers, and gods, their voices rising into the darkness like a bridge between humanity and the cosmos. They are not simply telling time, they are invoking it, shaping it, listening to it. Each sound, each number, is a step in a sacred dialogue between humans and eternity. This way of seeing the world made the Maya deeply attentive to patterns. When Venus rose as the morning star, it was not just an astronomical event, it was the god's return, a sign of changes to come. When an eclipse darkened the sun, it was not mere coincidence, it was a moment when the balance between light and shadow shifted, a warning or a blessing, depending on its place in the cycle. To ignore these signs was to drift out of harmony with the cosmos. At the heart of this cosmology lay the understanding that nothing ends forever. Worlds rise, worlds fall, gods are born and gods die, but each ending gives way to a beginning. The 13th Baktun, the cycle that ended in 2012, was never written as a final doom. To the Maya, it was one more turning of the wheel, one more chance for renewal. But in later centuries, when outsiders tried to read these calendars, they mistook renewal for annihilation. As you rest and listen, picture the great plazas of Tikal or Palenque filled with people during a festival. Torches blaze in the night, casting long shadows across carved stone. Priests climb the temple steps to offer maize, cacao, and incense to the gods, their prayers mingling with the stars above. In the minds of all present, the calendar is alive, its cycles turning invisibly yet powerfully, aligning their lives with the eternal order. To them, this is not superstition, it is harmony. It is the recognition that humans are not separate from the cosmos, but threads in its endless fabric. Even the rulers of the Maya saw themselves not as absolute monarchs, but as keepers of time. Kings and queens carried titles that tied them to the calendar, to the gods, to the cycles of creation. When they performed rituals, they did so not only for political power, but to maintain cosmic balance. Their authority came from their ability to stand in the center of the cycles, to be the living axis, where human and divine met. And so, the Maya lived not in fear of time, but in reverence for it. They did not look at the turning of cycles as threats, but as promises, that what ends will return, that what dies will be reborn, that each Baktun, each era, is but one note in the endless song of the cosmos. As the night deepens around you, let this vision settle in your mind, a universe where nothing is lost, only transformed. The gods rise and fall, the worlds are born and remade, and through it all, the calendar turns silently, patiently, like the breath of the earth itself. The question of prophecy begins to shift. Perhaps it is not about predicting catastrophe, but about remembering this truth, that everything moves in cycles, and that even the end of time is only another beginning. The jungle waits quietly, the stars blaze above, and the ancient stones of Maya temples whisper across the centuries. Their message is not of fear, but of renewal, of continuity, of the eternal return. The wheel of time turns on, and we move with it, just as the Maya once did, guided by gods, stars, and the ever-living rhythm of creation. The 2012 prophecy and the birth of a modern myth. Centuries passed after the last great Maya cities had fallen silent. Their temples, once filled with chants and incense, became overgrown by the relentless jungle. Stone carvings, once touched by the hands of scribes and kings, lay hidden beneath vines and roots. Yet time, patient as always, carried their secrets forward. When explorers and scholars of the modern world rediscovered these ruins, they also rediscovered the calendars carved into stone. It was in these carvings, particularly the long count, that a mystery seemed to wait. The long count began on a mythical date in 3114 BCE, and with each Baktun, nearly 4 centuries, the wheel of time turned. By the careful reckoning of modern scholars, the 13th Baktun was destined to end on December 21, 2012. To the Maya, this was the close of a great cycle, a moment of renewal. But to modern imagination, it became something else entirely, a prophecy of the end of the world. In the late 20th century, whispers of this Maya apocalypse began to spread. Books appeared with dramatic titles, television programs aired dire warnings, and eventually the internet turned the date into a global obsession. December 21, 2012 was said to mark the collapse of civilization, a cosmic catastrophe, or perhaps even a transformation of human consciousness. People claimed that ancient prophecies had foretold the alignment of planets, the reversal of Earth's magnetic poles, or a great flood of solar storms. Some believed a hidden planet called Nibiru would crash into Earth. Others awaited the return of alien visitors or the dawning of a golden age. As the date drew closer, millions of people began to wonder, had the Maya truly predicted the end of time? Imagine the contrast. In the quiet of a Maya temple centuries ago, priests had calmly recorded the turning of Baktuns, noting with precision the cycles of the stars and the sacred days. To them, the end of the 13th Baktun was a natural event, one more renewal in the endless spiral of existence. And yet, in modern cities thousands of miles away, people feared earthquakes, floods, and fire from the sky. Some built bunkers in the wilderness. Others made pilgrimages to sacred sites, hoping to witness the great transformation. For a moment in history, the whole world turned its attention to an ancient calendar carved in stone. But how did this misunderstanding take root? Part of the answer lies in the fascination the modern world has always had with prophecy. Human beings across every culture have long sought signs of the end, visions of apocalypse, revelations of what lies beyond the horizon of time. The Maya calendar, with its great cycles and its mysterious end date, seemed to offer exactly that, a message from the ancient world about the fate of the modern one. Another part of the answer lies in the way stories spread. Scholars and archaeologists who studied the Maya never claimed that December 2012 marked the end of the world. They explained that it was the end of a cycle, no more final than the turning of a new year. But outside academic circles, the story grew more dramatic. Writers, filmmakers, and dreamers reshaped it into something more thrilling, more frightening, more marketable. Soon, the nuance of Maya cosmology was forgotten, replaced with the image of a ticking clock counting down to destruction. The world did not end on December 21, 2012. The sun rose as it always had. Life continued, but the myth left its mark. For many, it was a moment of reflection, a chance to consider humanity's place in time. Some even felt that the prophecy had come true in another sense, not through destruction but through awareness. For a brief moment, people across the globe thought about cycles, about renewal, about the possibility that our world might transform in ways unseen. Now imagine yourself back in those days as 2012 approached. News reports speculated, websites counted down, and conversations buzzed with anticipation. Some people laughed at the idea, dismissing it as superstition. Others felt quiet fear, wondering what might happen when the clock struck midnight. And yet, if you had stood in the shadow of a Maya temple on that very night, you would not have found terror. You would have found silence. You would have seen the stars shining, the cycles continuing, the great wheel of time turning as it always had. The truth, of course, is that the Maya never predicted a global apocalypse. Their understanding of time was cyclical, not terminal. The end of the 13th Baktun was like the completion of a great cosmic calendar, followed by the beginning of another. Just as the rising sun follows the night, just as spring follows winter, so too would time continue beyond 2012. For the Maya, this was not the end, it was continuity. And yet, there is something revealing in the way the modern world clung to the myth. Perhaps it shows that we, too, hunger for meaning in the face of time. We long to know where we stand in the vastness of history, and we seek signs that tell us what is to come. The 2012 prophecy, misunderstood as it was, tapped into that ancient human desire. It reminded us that even in an age of technology and science, we are still drawn to mystery, to prophecy, to the question of what lies beyond the horizon of time. As you listen, let the memory of that moment sink in, the quiet passing of a date that many thought would be the end. Let it remind you of the power of stories, the way they shape our fears and hopes, the way they ripple across centuries. The Maya left us not a warning of doom, but a reminder of cycles, of renewal, of the eternal dance of creation and transformation. The misunderstanding may have been great, but within it was still a truth, that endings are never truly endings, that life flows onward, that time itself is always beginning again. So, as December 21, 2012 fades into history, the temples still stand, the stars still move, and the wheel of time continues its turning. And somewhere, deep within the jungle, the stones still whisper the same message they have carried for centuries. Do not fear the end. It is only another step in the endless journey of creation. Stones, scholars, and the science of Maya time. The jungle does not easily surrender its secrets. For centuries after the fall of the Maya cities, their temples slumbered beneath layers of earth and vine. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, they found some cities still alive, but many of the great centers had already been abandoned. The invaders brought fire and steel, and with them came the loss of countless manuscripts, the painted codices that recorded Maya wisdom. Yet stone is harder to erase than paper. In the jungles of Mexico and Guatemala, beneath the green veil of trees, the pyramids and stelae waited in silence, carrying the records of time itself. Imagine the first explorers who stumbled upon these ruins centuries later. They hacked through tangled roots and brush only to find walls carved with glyphs no one could read. Towering stairways rose toward the sky, and at their feet lay monuments etched with numbers far too large to be ordinary dates. These were the long count inscriptions, the great ledger of Baktuns. To the untrained eye, they were mysteries. To scholars who would come later, they were keys to understanding how the Maya measured eternity. It was in the 19th and 20th centuries that archaeologists and epigraphers began to unlock the glyphs. Piece by piece, they discovered that the Maya had not only invented a written language of extraordinary beauty, but had also developed a sophisticated system of mathematics and astronomy. Their glyphs recorded births and deaths of rulers, great battles, offerings to the gods, and, woven into it all, the turning of the calendar. One of the most famous discoveries came from the site of Tortuguero, in present-day Tabasco, Mexico. There, a stone monument known as Monument 6 bore an inscription that mentioned the end of the 13th Baktun. This was the very reference that centuries later would be misinterpreted as a prophecy of apocalypse. Yet, when scholars translated it carefully, they found something different. The text did not predict destruction. It described the descent of a deity, Bolon Yokte, a god of transformation and change. It was not the end of time, but the marking of a sacred moment, a shift in cycles, a renewal. As archaeologists uncovered more stelae, more temples, and more inscriptions, a clearer picture began to form. The Maya were not obsessed with the end, they were fascinated by the movement of cycles. They marked eclipses, solstices, and planetary alignments with precision that astonished modern science. At Copan in Honduras, stairways were carved with entire histories of rulers, each event carefully placed within the count of Baktuns. At Palenque, inscriptions traced dynasties far into the past and projected them far into the future, beyond dates we can even imagine. The Maya were not afraid to think in spans of thousands, even millions of years. Consider this. While much of the world measured time in generations, the Maya imagined time on a cosmic scale. Their calendar could map days that stretched back long before their own existence, and forward to dates we have not yet reached. One inscription at Palenque projects forward to a date over 4,000 years from now, suggesting that the Maya saw time not as an approaching cliff, but as an endless road. In the quiet halls of modern museums, you can still see fragments of this vision, carved stelae, painted murals, and delicate codices that survived the fires. Scholars pore over them, tracing the lines of glyphs with patient fingers, translating the language of time. They find not prophecies of doom, but histories, rituals, and a profound reverence for cycles. Science has confirmed much of what the Maya knew. Using their simple system of dots and bars, they calculated the solar year with astonishing accuracy, within a few minutes of the modern value. They tracked the cycle of Venus to such precision that they could predict its appearances and disappearances from the sky. Their eclipse tables, found in the Dresden Codex, match modern astronomical calculations almost exactly. To the Maya, this was not just knowledge, it was sacred order, the weaving of human life into the fabric of the cosmos. Now imagine the atmosphere of a Maya observatory. At Uxmal, the round temple known as the Governor's Palace aligns with the cycle of Venus. At Chichen Itza, the Caracol Observatory rises like a stone tower, its windows carefully placed to frame celestial events. Priests stood within, watching the heavens through narrow openings, their hearts attuned to the rhythm of stars. In their silence, they felt the presence of gods. In their measurements, they saw the balance of worlds. Archaeology has given us not only the material remains of these temples, but also a glimpse into the lives of the people who built them. Farmers carried maize to sustain their cities. Artisans carved jade and obsidian, shaping offerings for ceremonies. Scribes painted codices with red, black, and blue ink, recording cycles of days and the stories of creation. All were part of a culture that lived in harmony with its calendars, each person a participant in the cosmic dance of time. The more we uncover, the more we see how the myth of apocalypse was born not from Maya belief but from our own modern fears. The Maya did not speak of absolute endings. Their monuments speak of renewal, of gods descending to mark new eras, of kings performing rituals to harmonize with the turning of Baktans. The science of their calendars reveals precision, patience, and reverence, not panic. And yet, even in misunderstanding, there is wonder. For when we gaze upon these stones, we too are reminded of the vastness of time, of the fragile place we occupy within it. The Maya challenge us to think beyond our brief years, to see ourselves as part of cycles greater than our own lives. Their inscriptions invite us to step into eternity, if only for a moment, and to feel the slow, steady heartbeat of the cosmos. As you drift deeper into this story, picture yourself standing in a clearing where archaeologists work. The air is heavy with the smell of earth as they brush away soil from carved glyphs, revealing numbers that stretch across centuries. Each glyph, each line, is a voice speaking across time, reminding us that human beings have always sought to measure their place in the universe. We are not so different from the daykeepers of the Maya, watching the sky for signs, marking the days, searching for meaning. The stones whisper patiently, and the scientists listen. Together, they remind us of a truth the Maya understood well, that time is a cycle, not a cliff, and that even as we search for endings, what we always find are beginnings. Prophecies, misunderstandings, and the echo of myths. Across the long corridors of history, prophecies have always captured human imagination, from the oracles of Greece to the visions of medieval seers, from the revelations of holy texts to the whispers of fortune-tellers. Humanity has never stopped searching for glimpses of the future. The Maya, with their intricate calendar and deep reverence for cycles, became an irresistible source for such wonder. Yet much of what the world believes about Maya prophecy is not what the Maya themselves believed. Imagine the quiet of a Maya city at night. A priest, cloaked in woven cotton, sits at the base of a stela, running his hand over the freshly carved glyphs. The torchlight flickers across the stone as he chants the count of days, invoking the gods of time. To him, these are not predictions of destruction, but harmonies. Moments when cycles align, when humanity must act in balance with the universe. Prophecy, in this sense, was not a warning of doom, but a guide for living in harmony with sacred time. The Maya had no single prophecy of the end of the world. What they had were cycles. Their daykeepers interpreted each cycle as a pattern, a rhythm that shaped destiny. For example, if Venus rose at dawn, it might signal the time for war. If a ruler was born on a sacred day, it carried meaning for his reign. These were not absolute predictions, but signs, clues, whispers of how divine energies moved through human affairs. Yet when outsiders looked upon the calendar, they saw something different. To a modern mind, accustomed to linear time, the ending of a cycle looked final, like a countdown to catastrophe. The 13th Baktung, which ended in 2012, became the perfect stage upon which modern fears could play. Writers spoke of planetary alignments, polar shifts, and cosmic disasters, but the Maya themselves would have seen only renewal. The misunderstanding deepened because the Maya, like many ancient cultures, did speak of past worlds that had ended. In the Popol Vuh, humanity was created and destroyed multiple times before the people of Maize came into being. These earlier worlds collapsed in floods, fire, or darkness. But each destruction was followed by creation, each ending by a beginning. To the Maya, destruction was never permanent. It was the soil in which new life grew. In this, they were not so different from other cultures. The Hindus spoke of yugas, great cycles of ages that rise and fall. The Norse told of Ragnarok, when gods would perish, but a new world would rise from the sea. The Aztecs spoke of suns, each world ending and giving way to the next. Humanity across cultures has always sensed that time is not a straight line but a circle, forever turning. The Maya were one voice in this chorus of myth. But myths travel differently in the modern world. In an age of printing presses, television, and the internet, stories no longer remain confined to one people or one tradition. The Maya calendar, once a sacred guide for farmers and kings, became global news, reshaped by countless voices. Some embraced it as a message of doom, others as a promise of transformation. For a time, it seemed everyone wanted the Maya to have spoken about us, about our age, about our destiny. Think of how powerful that is, an ancient civilization, long gone, reaching across centuries to tell us something about our own future. It was a comforting thought for some, a frightening one for others. The truth that the Maya spoke of cycles, not endings, was quieter, subtler, harder to grasp in a world hungry for drama. And so the myths grew louder, drowning out the patient wisdom of the stones. Yet even within the misunderstanding there is a strange kind of beauty. The 2012 prophecy, as flawed as it was, invited millions of people to pause and reflect. For a brief moment, people everywhere asked themselves, what if time really does move in cycles? What if endings are not to be feared but embraced as beginnings? What if our world too is part of something larger, something eternal? Archaeologists and Maya descendants today often remind us of this truth. Modern Maya communities, still alive and thriving in Central America, continue to observe the sacred calendar. Daykeepers still count the days, still guide their people according to the rhythms of time. For them, December 2012 was not an apocalypse, it was a renewal, a closing of one cycle and the opening of another. They lit fires, offered prayers, and welcomed the dawn of a new era with reverence, not fear. Imagine standing with them at dawn on that day, as the sun rose over the jungles of Guatemala. Smoke from incense curled into the air, carrying prayers to the sky. Children laughed, elders chanted, and the world moved forward as it always had. To them, this was not the end, but a celebration. The cycle had turned, as it always would, and life continued in its endless rhythm. But outside that sacred circle, the myths continued to echo. Even now, years later, some still wonder if the Maya foresaw something we missed, some hidden catastrophe or secret transformation. Myths have a way of lingering, even when their origins are misunderstood. They live because they touch something deep within us, the desire to know what lies ahead, the fear of endings, the hope for renewal. And so the story of the Maya prophecy is not just about the Maya. It is also about us. It reveals the way we listen, the way we interpret, the way we shape stories to fit our own hopes and fears. The Maya calendar was a mirror, and when we looked into it, we saw not only their vision of time but also our own anxieties reflected back. As you drift deeper into rest, let this truth settle gently in your mind. Prophecies are not always about foretelling. Sometimes they are about reminding. The Maya did not predict our end. They reminded us that everything moves in cycles, that endings and beginnings are woven together. Their myths are not about doom, but about the eternal dance of destruction and creation, death and rebirth, night and dawn. The misunderstandings will always remain, echoing in books and films, whispered in conversations, spread across the internet. But beneath the noise lies the patient truth of the Maya. Time does not end. It renews. It transforms. It continues. And so the stones still stand, the jungle still breathes, and the stars still turn above. The prophecies, real or imagined, continue to guide us, not toward fear, but toward reflection. For in every myth, in every misunderstanding, there is a chance to remember what the Maya always knew. that we are part of cycles greater than ourselves, and that the end is never truly the end. Eternal return and the mystery of time. Night settles over the jungle once more. The temples stand in silence, their stones warmed by the day and cooled by the darkness. Above them, the stars turn in their patient arcs, the same stars that the Maya once watched with reverence, the same stars we see now. Time flows on, not as a line rushing to an end, but as a river that bends, circles, and returns. For the Maya, this was the essence of prophecy, not a prediction carved in stone, but a rhythm that carried life forward. Time was not something outside of humanity, it was something alive within us. Just as the sun rises each morning, just as the moon waxes and wanes, just as the maize sprouts from seed and returns again to earth, so too do we live within cycles. Birth, growth, death, renewal. Each moment is part of the greater turning. Think of your own life as you listen now. The seasons of joy and sorrow, the beginnings and endings that have shaped you. Each was part of a cycle, each an echo of a truth the Maya held close, that nothing is ever lost, only transformed. The 13th Bakdun did not bring an end to existence, but a renewal of the wheel. And in that renewal lies a reminder for all of us that endings are not to be feared, but embraced, for they are the doorways to new beginnings. The Maya saw time as a divine presence. Days were not empty, they carried energy, purpose, and meaning. A child's destiny could be read in the day of their birth, a king's reign aligned with celestial cycles, a farmer's planting tied to the sacred count. This sense of connection gave life depth, as though every action was part of a cosmic dance. Imagine what it would feel like to live that way, not as a thread woven into eternity's fabric. We too are part of such cycles, even if we forget the rising and setting of the sun, the rhythm of our breath, the beating of our hearts, all are cycles. We sleep, we wake, we live, we rest, and in the end we return to the earth, only for life to rise again. The Maya simply gave words, numbers, and gods to these truths, honoring what is often unseen. Perhaps this is why their story still captures us. Deep within, we sense what they sensed, that time is more than numbers on a page. It is a mystery, a living force, a tide in which we drift. When the world spoke of apocalypse in 2012, perhaps what it was really yearning for was not destruction, but transformation. Perhaps we all felt, if only for a moment, that time itself was calling us to remember, to awaken, to see ourselves not at the end, but at the threshold of renewal. Now picture the ceiba tree, the great world tree of Maya belief. Its roots stretch deep into the underworld, its trunk rises through the human world, its branches spread wide into the heavens. Birds nest in its crown, spirits dwell in its roots, and stars hang from its branches like glowing fruit. It is the axis of creation, the link between realms, the eternal reminder that all things are connected. This tree, standing in the center of the cosmos, embodies the cycle of renewal. Its leaves fall, but new leaves grow. Its branches may break, but the trunk endures. It is life eternal, just as time itself is eternal. The Maya prophecies, when seen clearly, are not messages of fear, but of belonging. They tell us that we are not alone in time, not lost in a meaningless flow, but woven into cycles that have turned since the dawn of creation. To live with this awareness is to live with reverence, to see each day as sacred, to welcome each ending as a beginning. And so as we close this journey, let us carry that wisdom into our own rest. Let us see our lives not as fleeting sparks, but as part of a great rhythm. When we wake, it is dawn. When we sleep, it is night. When something ends, something else begins. This is not doom, it is life. This is not destruction, it is renewal. This is the secret that the Maya whispered through their calendars, their myths, their temples, and their stones. Imagine now that you are standing once more before a Maya pyramid. The night is clear, the stars shine brightly overhead, and the jungle hums with quiet life. You climb the steps slowly, each one a heartbeat, each one a day, each one a reminder of the cycles of time. At the top, you turn and look out over the endless forest. The air is cool, the world is still, and the stars seem close enough to touch. In that moment, you feel it, the eternal turning of the wheel, the breath of the cosmos moving through you. This is what the Maya left us. Not fear of the end, but trust in renewal. Not anxiety about time running out, but peace in knowing that time will always return. The 13th Baktun was never the end. It was always the beginning of another journey. And now, as you rest, let that truth guide you gently into dreams. Time is not your enemy, it is your companion, your teacher, your endless horizon. You are not drifting toward an end, but carried in cycles that will always begin again, just as the Maya knew, just as the stars remind us, just as the world continues to turn. So close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let go. The cycles will carry you. Renewal awaits, and in the silence of the night, the eternal rhythm of time will cradle you, as it has cradled all who have ever lived. The story of the Maya prophecies is not about apocalypse. It is about life eternal. It is about the eternal return. It is about the mystery that time is never ending, always beginning.